guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all keeping well. Well, the long awaited R3 video. I'm a bit behind the times because I think it's been out 3 years now. It was launched back in the last Olympics, so I'm catching up a bit, but finally got my hands on one. I've had it about 6 weeks now, getting to grips with it, and I know there's going to be more than just this video on how I'm using and going about setting up the R3, but just thought I'd take you through the general settings, which buttons I've assigned for what tasks, and talk a bit about the focusing. But more of that in a minute. Anyway, without further ado, let's get the screen set up and we'll go through it. Right, I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way because I haven't got a mini HDMI cable to link the R3 to the laptop yet, so we can't transfer the screen onto the laptop and do a screen recording. So I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way and record off my 1DX. But anyway, here we go. So we're in mode 1, bank 1, and as you can see, I'm on JPEG quality 10, always shoot in 10 on that, and then we'll just go back to that. So yeah, always maximum, and always shooting in JPEG, by the way. I do get asked quite a lot of questions about what we're shooting, so yeah, it's always JPEG, but as you can see there, image is large, and I don't shoot in RAW, not for sport. If I'm doing landscapes and that, I'll flick it to RAW and take it off large, but yeah, always in JPEG, and don't bother in RAW. We don't need it for sports. Cropping aspect ratio, that's full, always in full frame for that one. Again, if I'm on landscapes I might swap it about a bit, but for sport, always in full frame. So let's go to bank number 2. There we are, look, so exposure compensation. As you know, I'm always in auto ISO and shooting on exposure compensation, so I will use the set button, scroll the top wheel, and then I can plus minus my exposure, look like that when I'm shooting. But let's go out of that one again. ISO speed settings, I'm on auto as I've just said, so that's that one. Yeah, we're in auto. Speed range, don't really alter them too much, so I always keep an eye on that. So that's that one done. Let's go through. What else? We've got auto light optimizer, got that set to off. Don't really mess about with that much. Highlight tone priority, that's off as well. So let's go back into the menu and on to number 3. Now then, the anti-flicker, which is a nice extra on the R3. Now sometimes I have tried it on various football grounds where the lighting's not too good. It does make a difference, but as a rule, got that off. Again, I can control that in the exposures. HF anti-flicker, shooting, that's off. Don't use a flash much. And my metering mode is always on evaluative metering. I always like to keep it on that and let the camera do its bit on the metering. That's that one. Let's go to the next one. White balance, mainly always in auto white balance. I might sometimes go down into white balance shift. If I'm at a ground where it's going to be quite orange or quite yellow or quite green, I'll go into white balance shift and I'll just move the various colours along. And you know, like so, if it's a really yellow ground, I might give it lots of blue and lots of magenta and leave it at that, just to save altering it back on the laptop. But yeah, so that's really handy. That is white balance, but as a rule, set to 0. Most grounds that I shoot on are quite lucky at, and the lighting's good nowadays with these LED floodlights. But yeah, white balance, auto white balance, set custom white balance. That's just on 1, so that's all right on there. Colour space RGB. Now picture style, I've just tweaked the landscape settings a bit. You can obviously have user defined down the bottom and set your own up, but I've just tweaked the landscape. So let's just have a look at that. Let's hit info for, see, I'm at +7 in the strength. That's all I've done really, just to give it a bit of extra sharpness. And the fineness, I've just tweaked it up to 1 to 5. Tweaked it up 1 step to 5. And the rest, now when I did get the camera, I whacked the saturation and the contrast up to help, you know, to save me doing any colour or any saturation tones in Photoshop during the edit when I'm pitch side, but it was just too much. So I've moved all them back to 0, and I've just left the fineness up 1 and then the strength up to 7, up to maximum. And I find that sharpness is great now. I don't ever need to use the sharpening tool in Photoshop at all. So yeah, that's those. So I say you can use the user defined. Obviously if I'm doing landscapes I'll go in monochrome, and then that's just basically black and white. But yeah, I've just tweaked the landscape and leave it in that one. Right, clarity, quite an important one. I've just knocked it up 1 stop, so I'm just on +1 on the clarity, just to give it a little bit of punch. that's all. And if it is too much, I can just take that down again in Photoshop. But as a rule, with that fineness on the landscape, so on there, with that fineness and strength like that, and then let's just go out of that, and then the clarity up one, I just find that the images just pop lovely, they do. So yeah, just +1 on the clarity. Lens aberration, haven't done anything with that, so that's all off. Right, let's go into number 4. High speed ISO. Well, I always keep an eye on my ISO, and I'm hardly ever high, but I've got that up to high just for the speed and noise reduction. But I don't really go above 10,000 if I can help it. I was shooting last week at Notts County and went up to about 10,000 ISO, but that was the max that it went to. So that's that one. What we got next? Don't use any multiple exposures. I might try that. I've got darts in a few weeks, so I might try a few multiple exposures just to try and get some arty-farty images at the darts, but at the moment obviously that's disabled. Silent shutter function, that's on because I'm in the high drive mode. I did start it off just in that, but I wanted to try and get 30 frames a second. It's on the body, may as well use it. So I've got that to high speed plus on that one. Yeah, so the silent shutter function is on if ever I need it. And that's an important one. Release shutter without card. I'm always, well, quite often forget to put a card in at the start of an event or start of a game. So I make sure that that's off, so that I cannot operate the camera without a card in it. I remember in the early days when that wasn't possible, and I used to shoot away and think, oh no, I ain't got a card in. So yeah, great little option that is. So I always have that to off, so that the camera will not operate without a card in it. But yeah, so what we got next? Customization. Well, we'll go into the custom buttons and quick controls in a moment. Touch shutter, that's disabled. I might enable that if I'm doing any landscapes, then I can just use the touch screen to, if I'm using a 10-second delay or something like that, if I'm in landscapes. Image review, let's have a look at image review. So I've got that to 4 seconds. I look at everything through the EVF now, so that's pretty irrelevant now because I always have the screen folded the other way because I use the EVF now to play my images and that. So that's that one. What we got on here? Anything of any relevance? Not really, I don't think. That's all alright. Power off, don't really want it turning off, so I've just kept that as standard. So that's that menu done. So let's go to the autofocus menu in one. I do love the touch screen. So yeah, AF operations, manual focus, so hardly ever in manual focus for sport, so we don't need that. I'm always on single point. As a rule, I might sometimes flick to expand it, but these 4 squares around it don't actually focus. It's always just the center point. They just help pick up to pull the focus point back to your middle, your single point. So as a rule, I'll always use single point autofocus, which is quite an important setting. Subject tracking. Oh no, let's just go back. So subject tracking, that is off at the moment. I have got that set on, I can't think which function button it is now, but I've got it set to quickly flick that on, like for warm-ups, or if the referee's walking over to a player, I'll quickly flick it on and then get that to track the referee or a certain player, which is great. But as a rule, we'll go into focusing in a bit. As a rule, I have that off, so we'll keep that off for now. Subject to detect, obviously that's on people, fairly obvious. If I was to do any rallying or anything, which I might do in the next week or two, there's a rally coming up, local rally coming up, tarmac rally, so I might obviously whack it to vehicles and try it on that. But obviously people, when we're doing the sport, doing the football. Eye detection, now then, eye detection, I've left it disabled. I tried it on my first game and it just went whappy, and this is what we was on about. I've been talking to so many chaps about it and lasses about it, and the eye detection just does not work for football. I can see it working an absolute treat for weddings and bits like that where your subject's not moving about so much, but for football, eye detection, when there's various, several players in your frame, it was impossible, and it was flicking about all over the place. So I don't use that as a rule, but I've definitely got that subject tracking on a quick setting, so on a function button, but custom function button assigned it, but we'll go through that when we get to the custom controls. But and obviously, because I'm not using the eye detection, I've just got that to initial priority and keep it on that. I don't want it to switch subject, so that's on 0 for keeping it on the point of focus that I want it to keep it on. So we'll set that. Let's go to number 2. I'm in case 4, so let's just go into case 4. Hang on, where are we? Info set. No, we're not in info set, we're in rate. Let's go to the rate button. That's it. So I'm in locked on. So once I've got that tracking focused on the player, I want it locked on. So I'm at -2 for that. So once it's on, it's locked on with a bit of luck. And that's in case 4. And then acceleration, deacceleration, again, I've got it to -2 because I don't want it to move off my subject. So I've got that on -2 as well. So that's case 4. If any of you are interested in the servo settings, I have heard that some people use auto and it works quite well, but so far so good. I haven't had any problems with using that. This is the same settings as what I was on the 1DX, and yeah, case 4 worked well for me, so that's where I've got them two on, both cranked over to -2. So let's go into number 3, one shot. I don't really mess about much. This preview AF, I'm not bothered about having the preview AF on there. Lens drive, when AF is impossible, I've got that off. I don't want it driving if there's no autofocus, so we've kept that as off. Let's go to 4, limit the autofocus areas. This is just for quick buttons, and again, I only use single point and expand AF area, so I've just got them two ticked, so I can't accidentally choose any of these on my quick assign buttons. So I've just got them two chosen, so I can just work around them two on my quick buttons if needed. So that's that. Autofocus area selection, I've got that on multifunction button, so that's set to that one. I've not really played with that. Sensitivity on the point select, I've got that cranked up to +1. Just to have a nice bit of sensitivity if needed. Now the orientation, I love this one. When I go obviously into portrait, the focus point flicks up to the top of towards the top of the viewfinder, which is great. Saves me having to scroll about and move it manually. It just automatically flicks up to the top of the screen so that it's focusing on the player's head, and then if I come back into landscape, it goes central again. And yeah, really like that setting. So that's how I've got that set. Hang on, I'm getting carried away. What we got? Manual focus peak settings. I've actually got that on. Not that I'm ever in manual focus, but if I quickly flick it into manual focus for any reason, it's on and ready to show me on screen what part of my composition is in focus. So I've got that to on, which is good. That's a nice little setting, and obviously high, and the colour I have is red. You can change that if you like, but I have it to red. And then obviously the areas on the screen light up red, and that's the area that you've got in focus. So that's quite a handy setting to have. I'm hardly ever in manual focus though. Electronic full-time manual focus, we don't bother with that because we're never in manual focus. So that's off. Focus ring, that's the same, they're the same, so they're all okay. So that's that one done. Let's go into bank number 1, protect images, erase images. These are all just basic settings, aren't they? So we'll flick through these pretty quick. Raw image processing, don't shoot in RAW really, so keep all them off. Let's keep going through. Slideshow, I don't use slideshow on the screen, I just use the EVF, so don't need any of that really. And these are all just your scroll wheel settings and buttons. Obviously that's where, I think I was with, was it Gary? I can't think who it was now, at Leeds. And it took us a while to find this function button and how to change if you wanted to obviously put a voice memo on it. And yeah, because it's in a totally different mode bank to the 1DX. So yeah, it took us a while to find this, but yeah, that's where that is. And obviously I've got it just to rate or record. So if I was to hold the rate button down, the star button down, the rate button down, sorry, it would obviously record my memo. So that's how I've got it. But yeah, that's where that is if you're sending off the back of the camera live. That's a very important button, and you might just use it, just flick it just to the voice record button only. But you know, I've got it to rate, and if I hold the button down, it then goes to record. But yeah, so that's where that is. Bank number 4 in your play mode. But yeah, it took us a while to find that. But and then just moving on, what we've got, auto focus point disable. I've got that enabled. The auto focus point display, that's handy. If you're playing an image on here, it will show you exactly where you focus with a little red square, which is handy. I don't use the grid, at all, so that's off. Movie play count, don't do much recording in it really, nothing of any sorts anyway, only to record the vlogs now and again. But so that's that. So we'll go into this network settings. Totally different totally different video I think that is, but yeah, don't really use that. Obviously I've changed the file names. If I was to send a file straight off camera, it'll have MAK and then underscore on it. Let's cancel that, so we'll go off that. Yep, GPS settings, image transfer. This is all if I was sending off camera, which I don't, so we don't really need to dabble into them bits. Right, let's go to number 1 on that. What we got, file numbering, got it as continuous. File name, that's still originally set. I don't use file name, I'll use it as image set 1 as a rule, but we don't really go in to use that much, because I always, as soon as I upload into Photo Mechanic, it gives it a separate file name anyway. If I was going to use that, I'd probably change that to MAK underscore again or something like that, but I've never seen OR6A ever, because as soon as my images come into Photo Mechanic, they are given their own preset anyway. So that's that auto rotate. I've got that on, so if I'm ever viewing anything on the back of the screen, it will rotate automatically to save spinning the image round. And that's quite important. Always make sure you've got all your bodies matched up the same, because last week I had an issue, as I think I mentioned in the video briefly. I got my 1DX out after not using it for a bit when the R5 went back, and it was an hour behind. So when I downloaded all my images, the 1DX set was an hour behind in Photo Mechanic, which was a bit annoying. So yeah, always make sure you match all your times up. And again, these are all beep disabled. I've always got that disabled. You do hear a few guys with the beep on and you think, oh, I'll turn that off. But yeah, now then, this is quite an important setting, power saving. I was looking for the EVF menu, and it was I had to get hold of, I give Steve Paston a shout, and thanks again Steve, because I had to keep flicking the shutter button every time I come back to the R3 on the 400, and it was off, it was in sleep mode, and I didn't realise that I had the screen off was set to, I think it was, it could have even been 5 or 30 seconds I think. And so every time I picked up the, it was when the R3 was on the 70-200, sorry, it was off and I had to quickly flick the button, and I did miss 1 or 2 frames because I was waiting for the EVF to warm up. So now I've got that to 30 minutes so it doesn't turn off at all. This is quite an interesting one, the screen dimmer. I've got that disabled. I did watch a YouTube video recently, and one of the guys had it set to 30 seconds I think, and he was struggling with his exposures. I think he was doing some sort of music gig, and with the bright lights it did dim his EVF, and he was underexposing, or was he overexposing, one of the two, his images, and then he worked out that the screen was actually dimming automatically. So I've got that to disable. Obviously auto power off for the body. I don't want that to turn off, not within 30 minutes anyway, so I've got that to 30 minutes. And the viewfinder off is either disabled 1 minute or 3 minutes. Well, I'm always in and out of that viewfinder, so it's always on within 3 minutes. It'd be nice if there was like 5 minutes or 10 minutes there, but you've got 3 options. So I did try it on disabled, and then I did realise that if I didn't go to the R3, it would obviously use the battery. So I've got it set to 3 minutes, and that works quite well for me. But so that's the power saving. That's where it is. I was drastically looking for an EVF setting within the menu, and I couldn't find it. And then Steve said, "Oh no, it's in your power saving." So yeah, we found it in the end. But what we got here? Anything of any relevance? Not really, I don't think. Brightness, I've got that on auto, so if it's a bright day or if it's a dull day, it'll automatically sort itself out, which is good. That works well. Magnification disable, HDMI resolution, that's on auto. Don't really go into this much, to be honest. I've not really gone into it much. That's fine at standard, so we'll leave that at that. Eye control, that's obviously off. I wear contact lens, and I did try it quickly at the first, I think the first and second game I shot with, and it was all over the place. It was just, because you don't necessarily look at just the one subject, when you'd be looking at another player approaching the player with the ball, and then the focus would flick onto him, so that is off for me. That was just a bit too techy for me. Again, if you're only using it for one subject, one person in the frame, I'm sure that eye control would be fantastic. You can look at your subject and it would focus on it, but yeah, that's off for me. Touch control standard, multifunction lock, we haven't got that. Sensor cleaning, USB, so we'll go off that one. Reset camera, we don't want to do that. I haven't got any C1 to C3 shooting mode set. There's obviously where you would save your settings, and I'm going to do it for this. I must save my settings onto a card, so when I get another R3 or an R5, I've got all these settings sorted out. Battery info, system status and manual, so that's all alright. And the firmware, I'm not sure if I need to update the firmware actually, but I'll have to look into that. But anyway, here we go, customise buttons. Here we are, look, so I'll run you through these quickly. Obviously I don't use back button focus, so I've got that assigned, I'll show you that in a minute, but I just use the shutter, so that's what that's for. Obviously the video button, I do use it to record my vlogs, so I've left that as the video. Some people assign that for something different, but I use it for video now and again. So my multifunction on the top button, just up here, the multifunction, you can see it just highlighted there. I've got that to switch between my EVF and my screen if I have my screen out. So if I was just to hit that manual function button now, it'll turn it off, look, and it'll flick it onto the EVF. But I just use that. Just if I do have that out for any certain time, it's not wasting batteries and it's not flicking between the two, because there is a sensor on here. So I've manually got that to turn it between the back screen and the EVF. So that's what I've got that one for. As I said earlier, I use the manual function 2 button to switch from the single point to the assisted area focus, but 9 times out of 10 I'll just use the single point on that. But that's there in case I need it. Obviously the bulb works, the bulb, mode is the mode. Now then, I have got the AF on button, which you guys might use for your back button focusing. I've got it to flick between, if I just go onto there, I've got it to flick between full frame and the 1.6 crop or the 1.1 crop, 16.9, and I find that 1.6 crop's really handy for managers and any sort of slow goalmouth action at the far end of the pitch. I might just flick it onto 1.6, hit the button and it's on 1.6, hit the button again, scroll it back, hit the shut button again and it's back to full frame. So yeah, I have got that AF on button assigned. Let's just go back into that and roll down. So I have got that AF on button assigned for my 1.6 crop if I need it. I've got that, yeah, obviously that's the AF on sensor button. I've got that switched off because I'm using that for the 1.6 crop. Now then, the AE lock button, which is your star button, I have got that set for my second lot of settings. So if we go into that and into that, there's my second bank of settings that I use for my pan blurs. So, and obviously you can go, let's just go default set, so you can go into them, scroll down, and then you can change. I've done a separate video for this. This is what they call safe shift, but I'm at 30th of a second, so let's just go into that. Aperture is 16, again you can change all these looks, so I keep it at 16. Auto ISO, leave it on auto ISO, metering mode, and then you can go through these and set all these up. Look, single point area focus, subject tracking is off. I don't want it to subject track while I'm going in that second lot of settings. I'm on people detect again, person detect, and that is my second lot of settings. So let's just go out of that. Let's hit the menu again. So yeah, set that. So my star button up there is what I would hit and hold if I'm doing any pan blurs. And again, you could have that set for anything. If half the pitch is in bright sunlight, half the pitch is in dark shade, you could have those settings, you know, ready for when the players run into the dark areas. You could hit your multifunction button, your star button, AE lock button, and then you've got your second set of settings. But yeah, I find that really handy. Now, when I am on the, especially when I'm on the 400, I've got my area AF point button set to play. So I'll play the image instead of having to come with my left thumb and hit the play button. I've still got that play button assigned for playing, but I've also got the AF point button assigned for my play button. So I'll play through the images, scroll through the images, and then I can still hit the rate button. And I just find it's nice and comfy having both thumbs operating at the top of the body. But yes, I've got that for that one. There we are. So the depth of field preview button on the front of the body, I've got it so that it's altering the tracking, the focus tracking. So I'll quickly, let's just go to set into that. So that's set for that, yeah. So I've got that for my focus tracking. So if I want to quickly track a player in slower action, I'll just hit that front depth of field preview button, and then I can track the certain player and then hit it again, and then back to single point focus. And that's really, when I was on about focusing earlier, that's really the only option I've found that works best at the moment, is just quickly, when the action is slower, is to use the tracking and get it locked onto a certain player. But when there's several players moving about, I've just found that it flicks from one player to the next. So yeah, let me know if you've got your setup different, but that's how I'm using it to my advantage at the moment. Other than that, it's single point AI servo, just like I had on my 1DX. But let's just carry on going down. That's obviously if I've got an RF lens on, which I haven't at the moment. Now my set button, like I've said, that's set for the exposure compensation, so I'll hold the set button down and then I'll roll the top wheel, and I can go plus minus on my exposure compensation. And I really like that. Shooting in auto ISO, that is. And yeah, that's especially with the combined with the EVF, you just can't get under or overexposed images now. And if it does, I do find sometimes when I flick to the referee, the managers in the dugout, sometimes just increase exposure a bit with the auto ISO. So I'll just hit the set button, hold the set button down, roll the top scroll wheel, and then just underexpose it by a couple of stops, and the job's good. And then when I flick back out to the main field again, hold the set button and just increase my exposure again. So yeah, I really like working in that. And that is about it. One thing that I must do is configure my quick selection menu, so that instead of having to scroll through all these, and then if I wanted to go to play or go into to format my card or anything like that, like it is now, look, I'm trying, where is format card even? Must be in bank 5, is it in bank 6, where is it? But obviously, there it is, format card is in bank 1, look. Obviously I could have that as a quick tab, just to go in there, format the card, bosh, done. So I've got to configure a set. I like this in the R3, I've got to configure the settings in that. But that is about it really. If I just hit the menu and then go on to that again, we can just roll around. Obviously I haven't got a lens on at the minute, so there's no aperture, auto ISO. Always shoot at around 2,000th of a second if I can. Obviously for the darker games, the League 2 games and bits and bobs, you might have to come down to 12/50th at night or something like that, under the floodlights, poor floodlights. Like I said, I'm on H+ in the electronic shutter, so sometimes I'll flirt between the electronic and mechanic, but if you can get 30 frames a second, you may as well go for it. But yeah, and I think that's about it really. We've gone through everything else, I think. Single point, yeah. One thing that does annoy me a bit is the, let's just spin this round. I'll just move that a bit and spin it round. You've got CF Express and an SD. I'd much rather it have 2 CF Express, and I've heard a lot of guys saying about I wish it had 2, because it's nice to have an SD card, but they're not as quick and they do buffer quicker than a CF Express. So yeah, hopefully perhaps the R1 might have 2 CF Express slots, but we shall see. But I like this door better. This is obviously going along the same as my 5D Mark IV and the R5. I do like this door better than the 1DX, where it was on a flick button, and obviously my 1DX is now it's gone out of focus, look, but my 1DX is when you go to flick the door open, it doesn't open. I have to pick it out with my nails now. But yeah, so jobs are good, and that's about all I think. Like I say, it's a bit of a learning curve still. I'm still going through these, and no doubt there'll be another video soon, but you know my basics anyway. I'll shoot in exposure compensation and auto ISO, 10 on the JPEG, large. So yeah, I've gone through the basics, and yeah, jobs are good. And well, there we go. Hopefully that's helped some of you out a bit and let you know my settings anyway. But do let me know in the comments below if you've got your setup any different, and if you've got any different methods. We all shoot differently, and it's great to confer and compare notes. I've been doing it, like I say, round the grounds for the last 5 or 6 weeks, especially on the focusing, and yeah, it's great to share our experiences of a new body and try and get the best out of it. But yeah, there's going to be another video or 2 on it, because every day's a learning day, especially in photography, and especially with these bodies, these new mirrorless. But I say there's no going back now. I'm absolutely in love with that EVF. To see your exposures live, you can't beat it, and there's no excuses now for under or over exposing, he says. But yeah, 9 times out of 10 it's almost spot on now with that EVF, so absolutely brilliant. But yeah, if you're out this weekend, have a great game, guys. I'm at Mansfield versus Knox County, so that'll be a good top of League One clash, so looking forward to that. I think I'll probably go Mansfield attack first half, but we shall see, and fingers crossed that it's dry this weekend. Do let me know where you are, guys, and remember to post some of your favourite images on the photography chat page. I may not be on there and active every day, but I do try and keep an eye out as the feeds come in, and quickly give it a like and have a look through. And there's some fantastic sets coming in now, and I'll jump on Facebook later and set the next challenge, and then for the next week we'll have some expressions on. There's been some fantastic expression images sent, so we'll try and change that every night if we can, because there's that many. And yeah, I'll come up with a new challenge, and yeah, it's a good bit of fun, that is, and it's great to see lots of people getting involved, so jobs are good. Anyway, have a great weekend, guys. Catch up next week. Take care. Jobs are good.